what to you would mean that posting something online actually requires cost, and why would that be useful?
Yes. So mm, today there is like this theory, the dead internet theory, that says that 80% of what happens on the internet are bots. And
Wow.
that theory came came to the came to fruition like a couple of years ago before the AI frenzy. So now probably if you ask the writers of this theory, they will say that it's not 80, maybe it's 90,
Even more. Wow.
99%. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, you post on Twitter, I follow you, and I follow a couple of people, but because you have created a web of trust, meaning that you know Princey knows me, and then because of all of that, we start to give value to a couple of accounts. But there are every time I post something on Twitter, I get like this retweet or repost or answer or whatever
Mm.
from a bot. And bots are learning. And when I mean bots are learning, it's like people that run the bots or people that run the bots that will run the bots in the future are learning to create more realistic accounts. So there will be a time, there will be a moment that we will not be able to differentiate from who's real and who's not. So that's what I say that if when you post on the internet, you don't know, and I don't have the answer. You ask me like, what would it mean, would make it valuable? I don't know. I don't know. So what I'm trying to advocate is for using a different type of network. I don't know what is the solution in the current network, so
Mm.
I can't help you with that.
Well, and maybe that's not such a problem in that helping understand that there is a problem is the first step to ever creating some kind of solution.
Hmm.
So in the future, the scenario you're painting is you would have a Twitter profile and you could post content if you chose to, but something like 95% of social media users never post anything or like anything or comment on anything. They're just there consuming other people's content. It's not going to be obvious if you're consuming a robot's information or if you're consuming a real person.
And
And
sometimes,
and and what are the ramifications? I mean, the ethical ramifications of that are very obvious in terms of like, there's no accountability to their word. Like, who owns that robot, and how many robots have they got out there saying the same shit?
it doesn't matter because we, the consumers, are happy with the content that we are reading.
Yes,
And that's the issue that sometimes, and this has happened before, Cambridge Analytica scandal happened a couple of
yes,
years ago.
massive. Yeah.
That was just one of example that came to life, but there are many other scandals, or maybe you don't even want to call it scandal. It's just the way the internet works today is that we are reading information that is mm, switching our understanding of the world. So the ones that are publishing it give us the narrative or sell us the narrative. But then it's like Inception, the movie. It's like
Mm.
we don't really think that it was that it was an idea that was planted in our brain, but it was.
Mm. Oh my God, it's kind of scary, isn't it? And to recap briefly my understanding of the Cambridge Analytica, and you call it scandal because it's a good word, that it's not, it's just people doing business. And it's not the first time that military grade technology has ended up in the retail market. That actually happens all the time, where a lot of money is spent in the military space to develop new tools, and they end up being actually repurposed and very useful in the wider economy. But my understanding of that was the ability for the US in particular were developing tools to influence social media, like the accounts of young Afghanistanis and Iraqis were being peppered with specific types of social media posts to try and sway their thinking. And they developed a very, very, very effective way of doing that. And then Cambridge Analytica essentially privatized that process and took it to politics and drove the outcome that was Brexit, and also ended up as part of the Trump election as well. And you're right, it's called a scandal by the people that didn't like the outcome. But for the people that chose to do it, it was a piece of business.
It's a point of
you're able to use the tools that exist. Is it ethical? Well, that's another discussion entirely. fascinating, isn't it? And this is why, Jordi, I'm fully of the opinion that when you take into context this kind of fourth turning discussion that I really enjoy, it's like, where are we currently in the cycle? And you look at the debt collapse potential, and you look at the central bank position, and you look at what's going on technologically. You're like, wow, this is all hotting up at the same time. I'm firmly of the opinion we're in an information war, like already. And actually that Cambridge Analytica story is a really good example of how information's already being used in a way to drive outcomes that you might have never thought about.
Yeah. And talking about ethics, what is ethical? Your ethics is different than mine. There is not a book, a set of rules that says what is and what is not. We might agree on the basic principles, but there will always be someone that has a different point of view. So it's a complicated topic.
And I think I strongly believe in that. But what's interesting is that people don't spend, basically, it's actually only happened to me recently when I've started investing in myself more and doing personal development work. That's like, Jake, what are your values? And what are your ethics that you live your day-to-day life by? And they're kind of very core principles by which you make decisions, particularly in my case with wife and children. It's like, well, what are our ethics as a couple? And what do we, really like, where do we stand with all this kind of stuff? We should have been, not forced, but it would have been very helpful as a 15-year-old to sit down and think about what my ethics and values are. But I would always encourage people to have their own. Absolutely. So there is no one rule, is there?